Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Dave Yosta. I'm the president of the Managed Service Provider Association of America. Today, we have a really interesting workshop for you MSPs that seems like a topic a lot of MSPs are asking nowadays is client acquisition and marketing. So today, we're going to have an awesome panel of speakers. I'm going to introduce you to them in 1 second. And we're going to start off with Jake Charen, who's going to be the moderator of this session, and they're going to take it away. During this event, we encourage you, if you have a question that is appropriate to your business, ask these speakers that question. That's what they're here for. And let's test the speakers. Let's give them a really good value question that they can actually think about and give you some valuable answers. So before we go any further, I'm going to bring Jake on and let's get Jake introduced. Jake, how's it going?
Morning, Dave. I'm doing great. How are you?
I can't complain, thanks. Do you want to give yourself a quick introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on this morning, and good afternoon to some of you that are in the Midwest and on the East Coast. My name is Jake Charen. I work for Lakeside Insurance. We're a private insurance agency located outside of Denver, Colorado. I am a risk architect that specializes in cyber insurance and putting insurance programs in place for MSPs and their clients. I'm not actually an architect, but a risk architect because I help design plans and mitigate risks for different small to mid-sized businesses. So I'm excited for you all to join in on our workshop today. We're going to have two really important guests. They're going to share a lot of insight about how to generate leads and new clients as MSPs. And like Dave said, that new client acquisition is really a hot topic that we're seeing right now with MSPs. And I'm excited for you all to learn today.
Thanks, Jake. Joe.
That is I. I am ready for you. So I'm Joe Rojas from the founder Start Grow Manage. And what we do is help MSPs grow and build a business machine that lets them live the life that they want to live so that they can really enjoy themselves and, think about the future and enjoy their families.
Thanks, Joe. And Tim.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. So I'm a marketing consultant and advisor. So I help MSPs build and manage their marketing engines so that they can grow faster. So I'm excited to dig into this topic today because it's an important one.
Well, thanks everyone. So once again, if you have questions in the comments box on LinkedIn, please ask these panelists your questions. Let's test them. Let's put them under a bit of pressure. I know they all like this. All right, Jake, by all means, you can go ahead and start your session.
Awesome. Well, as you can tell, I've got two great guests here with Tim and Joe. They are partners of the MSPAA, and they're very passionate about what they do. If you can't tell by the way that Joe moves that he's passionate, then maybe you need to drink another cup of coffee today. And I know Tim has a lot of knowledge, and so I'm going to be asking the questions. But like Dave said, please interact. These are always better when we hear from you. You are the boots on the ground. You're the ones seeing and dealing with these problems every day. We're just the ones that are trying to be your best friend and help you out. So I think this is a good kind of starting point for Joe and Tim. Either one of you can jump in. But why do you feel that it's so critical when MSPs are trying to grow their business or maybe keep their business in the right place? Why picking a certain industry sector to work with is just so important?
Joe, you want that one first?
You want to have at it, and then I'll come.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know Joe and I agree on this, but when you can pick a specific industry vertical, it becomes much easier to focus the rest of your marketing efforts. And everything from a marketing standpoint is built from the target market that you're going to serve and the ideal clients within that market. And most MSPs target very broadly, and it's too hard to hit a target that you can't see, right? And so when we narrow it down to a specific industry vertical, we can see the target, and then we can be much more targeted with our marketing efforts, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're targeting attorneys, it becomes much easier to create a list of where do attorneys congregate online and offline than it does to create a list of where do small business owners go. They're freaking everywhere. But if we're going to target attorneys, I'm going to go to the state bar association or my local bar association. What other events do they go to? what suppliers do they work with? What other vendors do they buy from? Other referral partners? Who else serves that space? What podcasts do they listen to? Influencers in the space. Creating that list is infinitely simpler when you narrow it down.
Yeah.
Once you have that list, then you know when you jump in and target anything on that list, you're going to be fishing where the fish are. But most MSPs don't do that.
Right. See, that what you said is the critical part. Is that you put all the fish in a barrel and then you go fishing. Right? Then it makes it a lot easier to fish. But it doesn't just do that from the marketing side of the house. See,
That's right.
the marketing side of the house, that's the cool part, because now you know where to go find the clients. But look, if you're solving a specific problem for a specific person, you can automate that process. You can add your tool set around it, right? And I like what Tim said. Well, if we go for lawyers, right? But I don't want you to just think about lawyers. What kind of lawyer? Are you doing personal injury lawyers? Are you doing intellectual property lawyers? You're doing real estate lawyers? Why? Because they use different lawware, right? They use different document management systems. They have different compliance necessities. Some have HIPAA compliance necessity. Some have NIST necessity. Some have. So what are the compliance laws that apply to that particular branch of law? That's how narrow you've got to get. Because when you get that narrow, you can command price. You cannot command price when you're a janitor that fixes Office 365 and I don't deal with your line of business application. You know, you have to go to your vendor for that. No, they should come to you for everything. And you should partner with the line of business application, and you should be certified in it, and you should be reselling it and making money from it. And you should be reselling and making money from everything that particular person that buys from you needs. An avatar is not an industry or a business. It's a person. It's the managing partner of the personal injury law firm that's going to buy from you. And that's why you have to get so narrow, because then you will know what the pain is of the managing partner of the personal injury law firm, of the intellectual property law firm. And then you can fix that problem for that person. So that's why, Jake.
Yeah, I really love both of those answers. And what I heard from both of you is really picking that industry sector is important, obviously from the market perspective, but also once you start working with these clients. And right, once you kind of start working in that space, let's keep going on the attorney side of the house, you get in that network, right? You get in that world. It's a tight-knit community where they start saying, oh my God, Joe and Tim, they know what they're doing. They helped me do XYZ for my firm. Are you utilizing them, or what are you doing? And then it becomes that viral moment, right? Or rather than you going out to 100 or 1,000 people, you help 5 people that spread your message out to their folks. And that's where it gets really powerful. And I kind of want to ask a question based off of that, Joe, kind of what you were discussing, and I'll let you start and then bring it to Tim. So what I was hearing is that it seems more aggressive or helpful in a way for an MSP firm to pick that sector, not just from the overall marketing perspective, but also helping and knowing that you are the pro in that space. So rather than me having, hey, let's grab an attorney and then let's grab a construction company and a manufacturing firm. Kind of talk me through what that looks like from your perspective, Joe, from the marketing and management side and looking to grow your MSP firm.
Well, from the marketing side is what we call the all the way through story, right? Like, what's the story that you're telling? What's the problem that you're fixing, right? What's the job to be done? So if you look at the jobs to be done framework, people do not, they don't buy your services. They hire your service to do a job for them, right? So what is the job to be done? So when you define the job to be done, you're answering that question, right? And then all the tools, your whole stack is actually, as an MSP, your whole stack is built around doing that job, unless you're a generalist. And see what you have to think about this, guys. Think about, if you're an MSP, think about this. Who do you pay more money to? The heart surgeon or your regular doctor that you go see all the time, right? Right. The reason why the heart surgeon gets more money is because he's a specialist, right? The podiatrist gets more money because he's a specialist, right? All of them, the specialists get more money because they are a specialist. So you want to be a specialist in your field. In terms of delivery, the compliance framework, right? If you have to do CMMC compliance or versus no WISP and NIST and all these other things, are you going to become an expert on everything? How are you going to do that? You're an MSP. If you're under $1 million, which is about 61% of MSPs, right? How are you going to learn 25 different line of business applications and 5 different compliance frameworks and provide cybersecurity at the level that the client actually needs it across all these things? How is it going right now for you? And that's the answer to the question right there. It's like, holy crap, I have to work 110 hours a week. I can't see my family. I have to always be studying and learning it. Or you become an expert in a thing, and then you know everything that there is to know about it. And now people are coming to you because you're the expert. And you're commanding price. You can charge $400, $500, $600 a seat versus $125 to $250, which is about the average nationally right now. You can double, triple that if you're a specialist that solves specific problems. So that's really the key to getting more clients, is
Right.
become really good at solving one problem.
So it sounds to me, and then I want to hear Tim's perspective too, Joe, is that rather than me running around as Jake's MSP firm, trying to find all these different clients, trying to do all these things, you're kind of following that 80-20 rule, right? Let's spend 20% of the time on 80% of the revenue rather than 80% of our time on 20% of the revenue. Because if I'm just running around trying to solve all these different problems that I might not know how to solve, that's pretty tough. But if I go to work and I help 100 clients that are doing pretty much the same thing, I know I'm the best.
Yeah.
I know I'm the pro.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to help you get to the place that you want to go to.
Yeah.
So Tim, let's kind of hear what your thought process is on that.
From the marketing standpoint, the other thing that narrowing down does is it solves one of the biggest problems MSPs have, which is differentiating. Joe already touched on this. When you differentiate, you can command a much higher price. When you don't differentiate, they see you as the same, and the client defaults back to price. It's a horrible place to be. So differentiating allows you, narrowing allows you to differentiate very, very quickly. The other thing is, once you hone in and really understand that problem, right, that you solve for that specific person, you can then create a message that's going to attract and engage those people. One of my mentors said specificity sells. We can't get specific unless we first get specific with who we're going to work with. Then we can create a message that's they're going to just go, oh my God, like Jake gets me. Like, was he in the meeting we had a week ago? Or was he in my head when I was thinking that the other night? That's what we want to have happen. We can't have that happen unless we know exactly who we intend to work with.
Yeah.
So,
we visit a lot of MSP websites. And if I can tell you how many times I've read the sentence, "We handle your IT, so you can get your work done."
I hope you handle my IT because I'm paying you.
Okay. Well, so here's a simple way to remember this, right? From a messaging standpoint, you want to focus on the problems that your ideal clients have and don't want, and the results they want and don't have. We need to talk about those things. Most MSP clients do not care about the tech. Joe already touched on this. I mean, unless your person is the CTO or the CIO or whatever, they don't care about the tech. They don't understand it. And if you start going off talking about firewalls and all this other stuff, they're lost. Like, I don't care. What does the firewall do for me? How does that help me? Right? That's what we need to focus on with our messaging. Problems they have and don't want, and the results they want and don't have.
So is it
Right.
okay if I talk a little bit about that, Jake?
Please do.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
So here's the thing about that, okay? Because we think with I was an MSP for almost 20 years, right? So I think with my MSP brain, what is the problem that I solve for them? I know I give them better security. I know I do this. I know I do that. But you know what? They don't give a crap about any of that. Nothing. Zero. Zilcho. Zippo. Nada. Right? What they care about is what is the business problem that you solve for them, right? If I'm a law firm, I might have a problem like all my documents are decentralized. We don't have a good naming convention. We don't have a way to really catalog all our documents and make sure they're assigned to the right cases. That's the problem that you have to talk about as an MSP. The issue is that if what you do is you do everything for everybody, you don't have time to solve that problem. So you don't. You just come in and do the janitorial work, like Juan Fernandez says from Super Ops. He says you do the janitorial work, right? And that's all you do. You make sure that Office 365 and this and that and Google and everything is doing but that's not solving a specific problem. To solve a specific problem, you need to understand what are the business challenges they're having. So I had one of my verticals was ophthalmologist. And when I first started working with them, I wanted to understand the challenges. So I would go and sit in the practice for a couple of days and just work from my laptop, sitting in the waiting room of the practice and look at all the problems. I spent like 2 weeks with a large practice. I spent like 2 weeks. And then I went and I met with the doctor. I said, listen, you could probably see double the amount of patients that you see right now. Your patient onboarding process is broken, right? You need to automate your patient's onboarding process. It should all be done pre-visit, so that when they come in, you just verify on a tablet that that's all the right information. And that's going to increase your patient throughput. And we took them from 45 patients a day to 90 patients a day. What does that do for the bottom line of the freaking practice? That's solving a business problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really understanding what are the things that are slowing down your ideal client from producing results. Now, if I go in, right, and I'm charging, for example, $300 a seat, and I say to the doctor, here's what you can do. And I come back in after I double their revenue. And I say, hey, I've got to increase my price by $200. Do you think they care?
They better not.
If I go to $500 a seat, he's not going to care because I doubled his revenue. What else could I figure out? If I stay in the practice and I look and see, well, what else is broken? And we did. We figured out a bunch of other things. I could spend an hour on that. But that's really when Tim was talking about the problem you solve. It's not a technology problem. It is a business problem. And the only way to understand that is to spend time getting closer to your ideal perfect prospect.
Yeah, and I love that because going back to the janitor side, you're not the one taking the orders. I want you to clean all this up. You're coming in and saying, no, this is what you need to do if you want to be successful. And here's how I can help you get there. And you are that differentiator. You are making them better when they weren't even expecting you to do that. And you know what? They're never going to leave when you do something like that, right? Joe just became my best friend. Tim was able to get me to XYZ spot. They get you to that place you didn't even know you need. But unless you have that conversation and you're becoming a differentiator, how's anyone ever going to know that that's something you can do?
They won't. They won't.
So I think that brings us kind of into another great question. And then I'm going to start taking some questions from the audience because being a differentiator is so important. But what do you both feel are the biggest mistakes that MSPs are dealing with when trying to have lead generation as not really being a differentiator? And you said it right there, Joe. We manage your IT. Well, if I'm paying you, you better be managing my IT. But what makes you different? What makes you special? And what makes me want to say you need to work with them?
You're muted.
Okay, unmute, Dave.
Dave, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but you have 2 questions from the audience. Could you address those?
Yeah, I didn't see those come through on my side yet.
All right, here you go.
All right, we'll jump into these and then we'll go into my differentiator question. So thanks for the question, Roger. So when we prospect cold calling, do we call the CFO, CIO / CTO to find the business problem? And I'll piggyback off of you, Roger, because something that I wanted to kind of bring into this whole conversation is really like, what does a warm-up lead mean? Because Joe and Tim are very, very pertinent on that rather than this whole cold call. We all like things that are a little bit warmer. So will you guys kind of answer both of those for me?
Cool. Do you want to go first, Tim?
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll just say about this question. This goes back to understanding the ideal client. Like, honestly, it could be, but it depends on the client, right? It could be the CFO, it could be the CIO. I don't know how they're structured, right? And everybody's structured differently, even within a very, very niche, right? Like personal injury attorneys, you have to get to a place where you know that, well, if they, depending on the size of the firm, that's the specific person you need to talk to. And you're not going to know that until you start
my
to
first
dig into
vertical was PI. I'm going to tell you, there's only one person in a PI firm, and that's the managing partner. Everybody else is the CTO, CIO, none of that stuff matters. You got to get to the managing partner. That's the person that you get to, right? So you want, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tim, but go ahead.
No. But that makes my point, right? The person you need to speak to depends on who the ideal client is.
Right.
Yeah.
And, so in the beginning, if you don't know that, you're going to have to step up to the plate and swing a few times to figure it out.
Well, it's interesting. We actually have a process for figuring that out for who your ideal client is, right? Yeah. And we have a whole form that you do, and you reach out to them on LinkedIn, and you're asking all these questions. You're telling them, I'm not selling anything, and you're really not selling anything. You're really, 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 when you tell people you're going to ask them questions, you're not going to sell anything, don't sell anything. Yeah. Just ask the questions. And we have a series of questions that lead you to understand what the customer pain is. And when you ask the questions and the way we have the questions formulated, they speak in their language. And then your marketing should be in their language, not in yours, and should speak to their pain in their language, the exact pain that they have that they said, not the pain that you think it is, but exactly what they said. And that's really where you'll start to find it, Roger. And then the other thing, it's all going to depend on the industry. So if you tell me the industry, I can start to tell you, oh yeah, if you tell me the size, any industry and size of company, and then I can tell you whether it's CTO, CIO, CFO, or it might be the CRO, or it might be the CMO, or it might be like, you don't know. You have to understand who's got the pain, and who's got the pain is going to vary wildly based on the industry. Oh, and you wanted us to answer another question, Jake. Can you say the other question so Tim can go first?
Well, it was just kind of piggybacking off on the whole cold calling. It's kind of what we've discussed previously is, what does it mean to warm up a lead rather than just a cold call?
Oh, I also want to answer Owen's question.
Yeah, so do I.
I'll read it out loud. So this is all good in theory. I don't need to be flippant, but if you've already have a spread of clients, different verticals, you were just working on brand awareness. How do you decide what sector to pursue? Excuse me. Dialed in, how do you, a one-person marketing team, convince the team to pursue a single vertical?
Good. Now, the thing that I need to know about Owen is, Owen, are you the marketing person? Now, go ahead, Tim. You answer this one first, and then I'll go.
Okay. So here are my thoughts on this. First, Joe, you may disagree with me. I wouldn't be spending any money on brand awareness. I think brand awareness should come from your marketing efforts. It should be a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
100%. You should not be spending money on brand awareness.
We're completely aligned.
Yeah. The second thing is, how do you narrow down who you're going to focus on? To me, the easiest place to look is through your existing clients. And a lot of MSPs have this roadblock where I'm like, I can't narrow down on, get that specific. Well, you got to narrow your marketing efforts in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, they're just not going to be effective. So I think the easiest place to start is your existing client base. And I call them the 3 power questions. Who do you love working with? Who are your most profitable clients? And who are you getting great results for? If you can work with clients that check all 3 of those boxes day in, day out, how much better is the business going to be? Yeah. It's going to be significantly better. So that's the easiest place to start, is looking at those clients to check those boxes. And then from there, you can look at what's coming to the surface, right? Like, I've had these conversations with people and they're like, oh my God, like half of my clients are attorneys, or half of my clients are in the healthcare space. Okay. Success leaves clues. Let's dig deeper here and figure out which one of these verticals we should target and who we're going to specifically target. Those are some initial thoughts on it, but
great. So
play off of that.
Can you say those 3 questions again, Tim? Say the 3 questions.
So, who do you love working with?
Yeah.
And if you love working with them, typically they love working with you.
Yeah.
Who are your most profitable clients?
Yeah.
Okay. And when I talk profit, I'm not talking top line. I'm talking gross profit.
Yeah.
And then who are you getting great results for?
Yes. And I'm going to add another question. Okay.
Oh, I was going to add one too. Let me hear yours, Joe.
Hey, who was your biggest pain in the ass onboard? It was impossible to onboard them because you had to learn 25 different systems. And now everybody in your company is an expert in the systems because they wanted you to handle everything, and you had to handle everything. And in the beginning, it was really hard, and you were freaking busting your butt, and you worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get them on board and get everything working. And now everything's working, and they're so happy, and they pay you all the time, and they don't complain because you figured out all their systems. That, even if you only got one, is your ideal client, because you know the most about their compliance needs, you know the most about their systems, you know the most about their processes, you know the most about all of their stuff. Now, if you don't like working with them, that's your problem. But that is, that's a client that if you raise their price by 50%, they would stay. That's your ideal client.
Absolutely. And I agree with that from just the holistic approach to business for any business, whether you're an MSP, insurance like me, marketing like you guys. Like, when you're asking that question of who is your favorite client, Tim, I would counteract that with why are they your favorite client? And Joe just hit it exactly on the head, because they trust you, they believe in you, and they understand that what you're doing, no matter the cost, you're not running them bankrupt, but no matter the cost, relatively speaking, they agree with you. And those are my best clients that I work with too. If I'm going to give you a risk perspective and do something different, listen to it. Let's hear what you have to say, Joe. And
well, I don't want to, what was it? Was that Fitzpatrick? No, not, what was the guy's name? The question went away that was there.
His name was
Owen. Owen. I'm sorry, Owen. I didn't mean to call you Tim's name. But the question that I had that he asked is, how do you convince people that should be because you have all these clients? And we didn't answer that question, so I wanted to go back and answer that question. Then I saw another question that just popped up, right? So he said, I don't mean to be flippant. If you already have clients in different verticals, and you're just now working on brand awareness. So what Tim said, he answered the first part of the question. Don't work on brand awareness. It's a waste of money, right? You don't need brand awareness now, right? You do a great job for your clients. That's enough brand awareness. How do you decide what sector to pursue? We answered that part of the question, which is you have to go through and look at the clients, right? And when you dial in, now how you convince. So there's 2 things. First, and this is for especially smaller MSPs that think, oh my God, I have to fire all my clients. No, you don't. What you have to do is you have to decide which direction you're going to go in. And you have to start onboarding more and more of those types of clients. Eventually, the other clients will either leave, right? Or you'll just maintain them. I have MSPs that when they started, they used to do all kinds of things, and they have that sector of clients, and then they focus on a particular area and started getting better and better. But what you have to do, Owen, to really win, as if you're the marketing person, how you really win is you just focus your marketing. Don't worry about what the rest of the company is doing. If you look at the customer base and you ask the technicians internally, hey, who do you guys like working with best? And then go look at that industry and then focus all your marketing on that one industry, create a Dream 100 list for that industry, go after those 100 companies, start onboarding more and more clients. Then after you got like 10 of them, then you go to the CEO and you go, hey, we onboarded 10 of these clients and everything seems to be going great. Can I just spend more money on that and forget about everything else? And that's how you do that, Owen. So I didn't want to go away without answering your question because it's a great question. And it's important that it's just wherever you point your marketing cannon, right? That's where you're going to get results.
Yeah, and I think what's really important about that too, because when you're starting up, you obviously need to generate revenue, right? You need to make money, you need to keep the business alive. But once you get to yourself to a comfortable place, that's when you can get a little bit more cocky. You can call your shots, right? I mean, at least from what I'm hearing from both of you and what I see in the marketplace too. And then you're not going to be running around like we talked about earlier, exhausting yourself, trying to just figure out what am I supposed to be doing with this client when at the end you should be telling them each time. So I'm glad thank you for the question. And then we've got another question, but looks like we have a bit of a rebuttal. So
yes,
let's hear the rebuttal and then I'll ask the next question. So Bill, thanks for joining on, said, I completely disagree. You have to work on branding and your brand awareness. As you know, people work with companies they know and trust. Branding speaks directly to that. So I think the message that Joe and Tim just tried to relay may have gotten a little confused in that answer. So I'm going to let both of them kind of discuss that.
Well, I'll say, maybe I didn't communicate it clearly, but it's not that brand awareness isn't important. It's that you should not be spending direct marketing budget on things that are specifically brand awareness because you can't measure it.
Yeah.
And unless Bill has a much larger company.
Unless you're Apple or you're Microsoft or you're, spending money on that when you're at 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, it's just throwing money away. It's burning cash.
I agree.
Burning cash. What you do is do great work. You do great work and make sure that your brand internally with your clients is clearly defined, who you are, what you do, what you stand for. All those things need to be clearly defined, Bill. So I'm not taking away, Bill, the fact that you do have to have a self-awareness of your brand with your team, right? Like you have to have that. I'm not taking that away. But I don't think that where you spend your money, like Tim said, I'm like, Tim and I are so aligned. We're one person on this. We live in the same body on that one, which is that you don't spend money on that until you're north of $75 million. Because now brand awareness matters at that. It's a different space you're playing in there versus you don't have to worry about that until then. Your work speaks your brand if you're doing the internal brand work. And I'm sorry.
Well, I want to hear Tim's opinion too, because I think we're kind of targeting more of that small to mid-sized business, right? We're not looking at Nike, who's out there paying hundreds of $1 million to athletes so that they can boost their brand awareness because that athlete wears it. I don't think that we're saying brand awareness doesn't matter because that is your business. I trust Joe. I know that he does a good job. When I give Tim to one of my MSP clients, I know that he's going to get them to that point they want. So I think we need to drill that point home. And I'm going to let Tim jump in because I know he's chomping over here at the bit.
Well,
but that's what I think is so crucial. So we just clarify that message for everyone that's listening.
Yeah, look, to me, branding is like what people say about you when you're not there. So your marketing efforts are helping support and build your brand. What we're saying is we're not going to take 10 or 20% of your marketing budget and spend it specifically on branding. If you're creating content and you're posting it on social media, that is helping build your brand. It is helping people get to know, like, and trust you. But what I'm saying is, like, we're not going to be doing things just for the sake of building the brand, because you can't attribute that back to revenue, which to me, most smaller companies, you should be spending your marketing budget on things that you can directly attribute back to leads that are turning into clients.
Yeah. And so I'll speak specifically about what Tim just said, right? If you're creating content and the content is talking about how great you are and how awesome you are and how great you are, right? That's brand awareness content. That's the wrong thing to spend money. If you're creating content that is helping your prospects solve their problem, it has a call to action at the end that leads them back to you, that is the kind of marketing that you should be doing. And by dint of solving the problem, you're also working on your brand.
That's right.
Well, yeah, and I think that what you mean by saying you, business owners, should not be spending on brand awareness is because you are showing your clients why you're the pro, and then they go and share with all of their friends that are in that same space. So it's not that you're not spending any money because you're building who you are, but you don't need to be directly doing that. So we're going to kind of get into some more of the marketing metrics to track, things like that. But we do have another question, and I really appreciate everyone joining in. It makes the conversation more fun. You get to see how excited Joe gets. I thought he was going to run out his door really quickly there. So how do companies identify an MSP specialty? It shows MSPs, how companies are looking at MSPs nowadays. So like, basically, how do you identify what that specialty is? I guess in addition to what we've kind of been talking about with the 3 questions, with happiness, because I think work-life balance is such an important thing that Joe really hammers on, and something that I value as well. And then obviously you need to generate money and revenue, but you need to do it in a happy way, not working 120 hours a week, unless that's your happiness. But I don't know many people that it is.
I don't know if you get it, Tim, but I don't get the second part of the question. How do
I don't either.
Determine?
No, I don't either. That's why I tried to have them clarify in the chat. But I think it's
I understand the first part of the question, but I don't understand the second part of the question.
Can I help you out with this?
Sure.
Yeah. So the question, it came through privately, so which is why it's up there. But as a company who's looking for an MSP, how can that company determine if what that MSP is saying and what that MSP is saying they specialize in? How can the company?
So now we're looking at it from the buyer's perspective.
Okay.
So that's cool. So you go on Google, you're a personal injury law firm, you go MSP for personal injury law firm in my zip code, right? And you go to their website and it says, we take care of your IT so you can take care of your business. That's not the one. That's not the one. You go to the next one and you go to the next one, and you go to the next one. The one that says, we work with personal injury lawyers to make sure that they can get to trial on time with all their documents. That's the one. That's the one you want, right? So then you want to go have a conversation with that one, right? Even if what you hit was a landing page that spoke about your specific problem, they understand your problem. So as a buyer, what you're looking for is that somebody understands your problem. And you want to think about this. Every small business that focuses on a single problem grows. Amazon, in the beginning, focused on what problem? Who knows what problem that was? Jake?
Amazon was trying to solve the problem of how do I get something to Joe and Tim easily and quickly.
No. What was the problem, Tim? In the beginning, the very beginning of Amazon. Do you remember the problem?
Amazon?
Yeah.
I know it was books. It was
buy who wants to buy books online? That was are you tired of going to the bookstore? That was the only problem that Amazon solved. And they took that problem and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
And so to answer that question for that buyer is you're looking for somebody who's speaking directly to your problem. Tim, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's if you go to their website and it speaks to you and it means something to you, then I think you're on the right path. And that's definitely a person that you should be, that you should at least talk to.
Yeah.
And get more information.
Interviewing and asking questions and figuring out whether it was just marketing or whether they really know what they're talking about.
Perfect. Glad we could answer that for you, Owen.
Awesome, Owen. That's really great. I'm glad to hear that. So yeah.
Cool.
So getting into a little bit more of the technical side of marketing, what do you both feel are the most important metrics to track when you are doing outbound marketing?
Tim.
And again,
Oh,
we've
man.
got about
We could
5
go
minutes
down.
left. So this will be one of our last questions. And if anyone else has a question, please ask. But again, if you couldn't tell, these guys could probably talk until tomorrow morning on this topic.
Yeah.
So if you do have any other questions, please make sure you reach out separately after the
Find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay, so we could talk about marketing metrics for a long time. There's a
Let's
lot.
get your bullet points again. How about that?
Here's my bullet points. If you had to only track 3 metrics, to me, it would be leads, how many leads you're generating. It would be lead source. Where are the leads coming from? That's going to help you identify which activities you're taking are actually generating leads. And then how many new clients. That way you can compare how many leads did I get? How many clients? What am I converting? At its most basic level, I think those are 3 super important marketing metrics. I think there are others, but if you're not tracking those, you need to be tracking at least those 3.
Good. So we track probably around 6 or 7, and they're very, but as you see, when Tim speaks, I take notes.
But this is recorded, so you can watch later.
I know, I watch it later, but I take notes, right? But we use the buyer's journey, right? So there's awareness, there's engagement, there is awareness, engagement, subscription, conversion, and then excitement, and then ascension. And ascension is when they actually buy your product, right? So there's these 6 stages. So what we do is we look at the metrics in between each stage. How many people from awareness are making it into engagement? And if not enough people from awareness are making it into engagement, then we tweak the awareness because the awareness is broken. And then we get more people in engagement. Now that we have these people in engagement, how many of those people are moving to subscription? They download a PDF. They follow you on something. How do they do that, right? And so, hold on, metrics, sure, but what about best channels? Very sad, terrible digital space. We'll talk about that in a second. Right? So then you measure there, and then you tweak there, right? And then and you keep doing that between all the stages of the funnel until you can get your journey to do something predictably, one thing, right? So that means if 100 people come in the awareness side, I get 1 client. Great. So now I know that I'm only getting, 200 people in, so I'm only getting 2 clients out. So I need to increase the awareness, but that you don't know what to tune until you don't get all the way through process working consistently. So it's about bringing about the consistency. And so that's kind of, we measure that way. Does that make sense? Cool. But I saw Owen's question flash.
Owen's asking a loaded question.
Yeah. So that's a loaded question we got 2 minutes left. So you go, Tim, because I'll answer that question for a really long time. This is we can do a part 2 of this session, or at least like a series of the session, because we could talk for the next 3 days.
I'll answer it, but I don't think you're going to be happy with it. So to me, this goes back to what we started with. Best channels, go back to your ideal clients and who you intend to work with.
Where are they?
Yeah, where are they? Once you identify that, that's where you need to be. So look, all the tactics, the channels can work, but you got to understand the ideal client first and foremost. The other thing I'll add there too is it has to work for you, right? Like, we're on video here. If I tell you got to do video and you're terrified to death of it, then that's not a channel you should use. So I know that's not super detailed, but
the other thing is, if the channel for your ideal client is snail mail, that's the channel. right? Like, you just got to figure out who the bottom line nuts and bolts answer to that question, Owen, is who's the buyer.
And what makes you happy? Is it going out and speaking? Is it going to networking events? Do you like to play golf? Do you
But see,
like
the
to
thing
go to
with
workshops? What do you like to do?
the thing with that, Jake, is that you can always hire somebody. You can, if you're not happy with it, you can hire somebody to go do the speaking and do the thing and do that. You can hire somebody for that. If there's a thing you're afraid of, you can always throw dollars at it. You just throw your marketing dollars at that because you know that that's what works. But it's really what's the medium that they want. And
Yeah,
you go, yeah, if speaking it is, and you hire speakers and you bring the speakers in. There's a lot of great speakers and there are for hire. So you can make it work.
And then you find like-minded people that you end up working with, and your job doesn't become a job anymore, but it becomes a passion that you actually love and enjoy. And again, we're not in the world's most attractive business. We're not out here playing sports for a living or doing different types of things on a stage at a concert. But this is your life and you want to make it what you want. It's not working 100 hours. It's finding good people to work with and clients that respect and value you as you do the people that you pay to do services for you. So again, I think that this was awesome. I really appreciate it. I can already smell that we're going to have episode number 2 coming probably sometime after Memorial Day, because I know these guys want to keep talking. But again, all of our information will be shared with everybody that attended. This is recorded. Thank you again for joining in with the MSPAA, meeting Joe, meeting Tim, and myself. We're all available for resources. If you just want to have a conversation, add us on LinkedIn, shoot a message. We're always available to do this, whether you're local and you want to grab a cup of coffee or something, that's always an option too. But I know Joe will say, don't be a stranger, and I'm going to let him finish it off with a signature line.
Remember that you are loved. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.